Cincinnati. What's the energy and atmosphere been like there?
Laura, the Bengals camp is urgent and fast. That's because Cincinnati is trying to set a tone and get off to a faster start to the season. Get this stat. Bengals are 1-11 in the last six seasons in weeks 1 and 2. So Zach Taylor, the head coach, is hoping that his offense sets the tone early.
Well, we want to control the game, get on teams earlier, put points on the board to where our defense can really tee off and build bigger leads for us. And so I think that's an area where we can always improve, is getting on teams quicker. We've had games where that's good. There's been games where that's not good enough. But I think the offense needs to be able to set a tone going into every game, and the defense can play off of that.
On the defensive side, Trey Hendrickson still not here, but the Bengals have been talking with Hendrickson. I'm told they made some progress in certain areas, but this remains a matter of guaranteed money, particularly later in what should be a multi-year contract extension if they can eventually reach it. But Shamar Stewart is here. He had back-to-back pass deflections in the defense and looked good. I talked to Zach Taylor, who said that he has tremendous burst and twitch.
All right, we love it, Jeremy. Great details there from Bengals camp. Keep an eye on that Trey Hendrickson situation as we welcome you into the show. We've got Field Yates, Mina Kimes, Adam Schefter here today, and a lot to get to. Adam, I want to start with what we were just talking about with Jeremy Fowler. Trey Hendrickson, still not at camp. He's waiting for that new deal. You heard Jeremy's talk there about the guaranteed money. What more can you tell us is going on there with Hendrickson?
Well, that's exactly what's going on right now, Laura. Essentially, there's not much of a disagreement on the length of this contract, on what the average annual salary should be, but the two sides are having a difficult time coming to a common place where they both can agree upon the guaranteed money in that particular contract. The Bengals have wanted to offer 1 year guaranteed money. They've upped their offer since then. They're a little bit closer, but still not where Trey Hendrickson would want to be, especially considering that when we look at the other top pass rushers that have gotten deals done this offseason, from Max Crosby to Myles Garrett to TJ Watt, those deals included 3 years of guaranteed money. And right now, Trey Hendrickson is not going to take less than what he has set in his mind. So the two sides are trying to figure out if they can find a solution to get Hendrickson back into camp. But the guaranteed money is the roadblock and the stumbling block between the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson finding enough common ground to get a deal done.
And Adam, as you've told us, Trey Hendrickson has no problem sitting out, so something to monitor. Mina, you heard Zach Taylor. He wants to start the season fast, of course, right? How much pressure does this Bengals defense face early in the season if they don't have Hendrickson?
Yeah, I don't need to tell viewers for the 100th time how important Trey Hendrickson was to the pass rush last year, how he really was the Bengals' entire pass rush last season, how raw their first-round draft pick Shamar Stewart is. Even though he's on the field now, I don't think there's any expectation he's going to be anywhere close to what Hendrickson did early on in the season. But for me, what I'm starting to get nervous about is the start, as you talked about. So, week 1, Browns, a little bit less worried about that offense. But I'm looking at weeks 2 and 3, the Jaguars and the Vikings, and I'm thinking about Brian Thomas Jr. and Justin Jefferson, along with Travis Hunter, by the way. We'll see what they get out of him. But I do not feel confident in the Bengals secondary when it comes to defending those two players. Their best chance of limiting those two receivers is a pass rush. And their best chance of having a pass rush is Trey Hendrickson back on the field. So you do get nervous about that when you start looking at matchups, at the possibility of him holding out for any length of time.
Yeah, Mina, let's go back to what Adam was talking about as the sticking point in this deal. It's the idea that the Bengals are less comfortable guaranteeing money for 2 seasons. So let's talk to what the downside could be if you do that in your Cincinnati. Maybe Trey Hendrickson hits a wall, falls off a cliff as a player this year, and you're overpaying him in the 2026 season. Let's talk about the downside about not having Trey Hendrickson on your team this year. You've got no chance. You talk about some of those matchups they faced early in the season against the likes of the Vikings and the Jaguars, and even week 4 against perhaps the best offensive line in the NFL, or near the top with the Denver Broncos. Think about playing meaningful football games in January against the likes of Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen. Last year, if there were any team meetings between the offense and the defense in Cincinnati, Trey Hendrickson might have been the only defensive player that any of the offensive players could look in the eye and say, you are pulling your weight, because the rest of the defense was not. So I understand these things are complicated. Saying otherwise, I think, would be disingenuous. But if ever there was a time for the Bengals to back off precedent a little bit and ignore the age a little bit, it's right now. The guy's been the most productive pass rusher over the past 2 seasons of the NFL. We have some hope for Shedeur Stewart, but this roster outside of Trey Hendrickson rushing the passer leaves much to be desired. He is the fulcrum for this defensive front 7.
You mentioned starting fast and some of their opponents. I feel the Bengals have 7 games versus teams that ranked top 10 in points per game last season. So they need their defense to be better. They need Trey Hendrickson there. All right, new on NFL Live. The news coming out of Denver. Adam, what more can you tell us?
Laura, the Denver Broncos finally have a new deal for their wide receiver, Courtland Sutton.